My name is Cynthia Bennett, and I am the Democratic candidate for District 71. I have some wonderful, wonderful prepared remarks that are beautifully written and very lyrical, and I'm not going to use them. I'm just going to talk to you about me and why I'm running for office. I've lived in Georgia for half my life. I realized that the other day. And prior to that, I was a military child, and so traveled and moved probably every 2 or 3 years around the country and around the world. So Georgia is truly my home. I have lived in the house that I'm currently in for the longest time period of my entire life. My husband Ken, who is in the back, and I are very rooted in Georgia. We are very rooted in Coweta County, and we plan on being here until we're 6 feet under. And it'll probably be here in Georgia. I entered this race because I believe that our district, you and I, deserve representation that's focused on our region and focused on our future. I'm running because we need leaders who will responsibly use our state resources to meet the needs of Georgians. But I also ran for another reason. I ran because I wanted voices to be heard, and this is going to involve a couple of numbers. There are 180 districts in the state of Georgia. So there are 180 seats in that Georgia State House. Of those seats, 31 are contested. 31 are contested. Now, that sounds like a small number, so let me reverse it a little bit. I'm a retired educator, and I spent a great deal of time teaching mathematics and economics, so sometimes I know that numbers make people's eyes roll back in their head. That means 149 are uncontested seats. And when there is no contest, there is no dialogue. And so in February, when I realized that this was going to happen again in my home district, because the last election cycle, the incumbent was unopposed, I stepped up to run for this office.
Yeah.
Now, I ran for this office 3 years ago as well, so I'm new all over again. I worked very hard 3 years ago to familiarize myself with the issues, the things that were important to our county, the things that were important to our district, the things that were important to our state, and at the time the conversation was education and transportation and healthcare and the environment. And you know what? It was really easy preparing this time around because most of my research was done. Because 3 years later we are talking about the same things. We are dealing with the same issues. And Georgia needs leadership that will make decisions, that will work together, that will fight using the wisdom of the people of Georgia to meet the needs of the people of Georgia. I'm kind of sad because I did a lot of research on the 4 amendments that are on the ballot, so I'm going to talk about those for just a minute because they are so intriguing, and we've all been so covered up with this very unusual election cycle that I'm not sure we're paying attention to things that are on our very own ballot that we need to pay attention to. So I have a copy of the state constitution. I've had it for a number of years, and I've read it. I've read it a couple of times. And one of the things that I did with the 4 amendments was to actually take a look at the state constitution and determine where those amendments were going to take place. So the very first amendment, of course, is the Opportunity School District. Now, I am a retired educator. I've told you that. I retired 1 year ago this past spring, and public education is near and dear to my heart. I was publicly educated at the secondary level, at the post-secondary level, at the graduate level. My family was educated in public schools. My children were educated in public schools. I'm very, very proud of my tenure as a Georgia teacher. And so when I really started to investigate the Opportunity School District, I was dismayed to learn that it is grounded on the Recovery School District of Louisiana that went into place 8 years ago. And I'm dismayed because of the following reasons. I just did a couple of rankings, and in 2016, this past month, U.S. News and World Report ranked Georgia number 21 in high school performance. Number 21. Louisiana on which we have based the Opportunity School District, is ranked number 47. Not 4, not 7, but 47. And I ask myself, why are we betting Georgia's future on a state that is ranked lower than we are in the latest national poll? It makes no sense. So then I did a little bit more research, and Georgia's ranked very, very low on school expenditures per pupil, very low. So I did a little bit more research, and there is a study out while at Hub, and it actually looks at the way tax dollars are spent. And the study examined 112 major cities in the United States, growing cities, the most populated cities. And it looked for the least efficient use of education dollars. In 2016, New Orleans ranks #1 for least efficient use of tax dollars. Their average standardized test score is a 57.8. Georgia, out of those 112, now remember, #1 is the least efficient, is ranked, or excuse me, not Georgia, the city of Atlanta, and we are all familiar with the city of Atlanta's problems, is ranked number 16. But the city of Atlanta's average standardized test score is 82%. Again, as a retired educator, as a citizen of this state, I am dismayed that we are going to amend our Constitution on a program based on a state that has seen failure after failure after failure. And there are lots of other reasons. The money bothers me a little bit. The exit plan bothers me a little bit. The 4 options bother me a little bit. When a school is taken into the Opportunity School District, they are there for a minimum of 5 years. So you've heard about local control. I know you've heard about local control. I know you've heard it said that it is a power grab by the governor. But let's go back to what it's based on. It's not sound education policy. And for that reason, I am voting no, and I encourage each of you to do the same. Now I'm going to skip, and I'm going to go to number 4. Number 4. Now, the exciting thing about number 4 for me is because it proves my point about our legislature not paying attention. Well, first of all, let me tell you what my commitment is. I am not going to vote for a piece of legislation that I have not asked myself, what is this going to look like in 3 years? Is it going to damage our economy? Is it going to hurt the people of Georgia? Is it going to move us upward and forward? If it is not going to get my vote. So let's talk about Resolution 4 that is going to be on the ballot. Do you know what it is? It earmarks the tax dollars that are paid for the purchase of fireworks, to fund trauma centers and fire protection throughout the state. Now, that should have been in the original bill. And instead, 2 years after the state allowed us to buy pyrotechnics on the open market, we have now had to visit this law 2 times. The first time to set up a time frame that fireworks can be blown off. The second time to say, oh yeah, we're seeing a lot of things getting on fire and people having to go to the hospital. So let's take the tax dollars. So I'm voting yes on 4. Happily voting yes on 4, but I promise you that when I am in Atlanta, I am going to be looking very, very hard at what is going to happen when a law is passed to the people of Georgia. And not, the end of the session, I'm going to go home and go back to Coweta, but I'm going to look 3 years down the road. And that is my pledge to you. Now I'm going to talk about my opponent, who's not here tonight, and I'm going to talk about my opponent in education. I wasn't going to hammer education, but I'm going to. I recently watched 2 videos, and one of them involves Mr. Stover speaking to the House about the tyranny of the governor's office. And it's very fervent. He quotes John Locke and the treatise, and I mean, he does a very, very good job. It's very well researched. But now I wonder about Amendment 3 and what the legislature is doing to abolish the Judicial Qualifications Commission and replace it with an agency of the same name, but the legislature can choose and have a direct impact on 7 of the commission members, while the Supreme Court only has a selection of 1. And this to me is a legislative power grab. And so I'm voting no on Amendment 3. Right now, this is a high-achieving, underfunded commission that has removed 66 incompetent judges from the bench. And if you really want to question what's going on with this piece of legislation, you need to look at the sponsorships, because 3 of them are representatives who were removed from the bench but have since run for House seat, won the election, and now they are sponsoring legislation to, now we've all took 9th grade civics, we know about balance of power, we know what legislative oversight is, but we cannot support a move of the legislature to move in our judicial branch and have a controlling impact that are decisions made about people on the bench. So I'm voting no there. I'm still out on Amendment 2. It involves using increased penalties for sex crimes in Georgia to fund the Safe Child, Bob, what's it called? Safe Harbor for Child Exploitation. But it also, almost as an afterthought, says, oh, and we're going to put assessments on adult entertainment businesses. I have a problem with that, just to assess adult entertainment businesses that have been all along obeying their county ordinance and the state laws and conducting business for years and years, and tying them to child sex trafficking. When actually, in this, at least I know from my study, in Atlanta, child sex trafficking increases when there's a Super Bowl or a championship sporting event in town. And I don't see the data that directly ties the adult entertainment industry to child sex trafficking. So I think this is one of those knee-jerk reactions. Oh yeah, let's get more money and let's add an assessment to already established businesses, legal businesses, that are doing what they should be doing within the law of their state and county. The last thing that I want to talk about, and I'll get back to it, I realized I got kind of tangential, was education. I watched another video of the GOP caucus and listened to Representative David Stover talk very proudly about he was the single dissenting vote of the 2016 or 2017 budget, state budget, of both houses, the single no vote. And then he talked about how he aggressively spoke against the Board of Regents bond issues to raise $200 million to expand and build technical colleges in the state of Georgia. And he got a wonderful round of applause. And he specifically talked about $50 million being spent in the city of Gainesville to expand Linear Tech, which is in Gainesville. And I asked myself at the end of that video, does he understand, and I see that he is just entering the room, does he understand the importance of technology education in moving Georgia forward and preparing a workforce that can meet the needs of the businesses who are interested in moving here? Just the other day, I read in the paper that we have businesses moving to Coweta County and to Atlanta who are interested in a workforce that is trained and ready to move immediately into this new, fast-growing world of technology. I am not easily distracted. I am focused on our region, fighting for our future, and I am the best person for the job. My name is Cynthia Bennett. I'm the Democratic candidate for District 71.